Picture this. During the Pokemania that happened in the late 90s, alongside all the rumors for Mew Under the Truck and Missing No, there were also rumors of a brand new Pokemon game coming. Information was drip-fed through hints in the new anime like Ho's appearance in episode 1, or the prototype of the game that was held in the Space World Japan event in 1997. But this event was limited and didn't get much coverage outside Japan. Even now, we only have scraps of footage of the actual event. Fans of the series would have to wait another 3 years to get this entry in the West. And then, on October 15th, 2000, Pokemon Gold and Silver released in North America, and the third version, Crystal, came out on July 30th, 2001. After returning home from Toys R Us with your parents and your new Pokemon game, the cartridge slides into the Game Boy, and the screen lights up. Professor Oak appears on the screen, just like you remember him from Red and Blue. And Crystal, you can even pick your gender. Revolutionary, I know. You walk downstairs. Your mom greets you, and after a talk, you're on your way to your next Pokemon adventure. I've always felt there's something special about the atmosphere in the Gen 2 games, even more so than its remakes, and today I'm going to explore why that is. To start off, I think the obvious question to bring up is what makes a great atmosphere in a video game? The first two examples that personally come to my mind are Hollow Knight and the Ocarina of Time. Hollow Knight, for example, uses a mixture of ambient music and environmental storytelling to really sell the soul of the Lost World to this player. Throughout the game, the world opens up, and you find clues which point to a much bigger story than what you're just playing. History that spans decades or centuries. Ocarina of Time is a slightly different case. An almost 30-year-old game with outdated graphics, and yet it's remarked for holding up tremendously well. This game is a theme of, well, time, and you often see familiar places age and undergo change before your eyes. It ties the link together with music. Each time you revisit an area, the music brings you back the memory of the first time you visited each area, which often gives you an uncanny mix of feeling familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. While the visuals might be off-putting to a modern audience, the lack of details in older games can often allow your imagination to fill the gaps. The culmination of all these relatively small things, in both cases, is what I think makes for a great atmosphere. But what does this have anything to do with Gen 2? Well, Gen 2 actually takes advantage of all these traits. Or at least all of them if we were talking about Crystal specifically. I'd be happy to explain that, but first, I must point out that despite the difference in the way both of these games create atmosphere, the most atmospheric rich games share one thing in common, and that's music. While you don't need music to create a compelling atmosphere, it certainly helps. A lot. One such place is the Ruins of Alph, mainly known as the home of the unknown Pokemon. Alongside text that just brings up more questions than answers, is accompanied by this melancholy track which makes everything feel uneasy and empty, or even alien. From a gameplay standpoint of view, there's pretty much no real reason to visit this place. Unknown is collectible, sure, but its stats are horrendously bad, and it's the only thing you can find here. So the only real drive to come down here is pure curiosity. I think this game design is useless as it seems on the surface, complements the theme of mystery that runs deep throughout the core of this region. Another one of the big mysteries of Johto is the story of the Burnt Tower. This story is scattered throughout the game, but in general it's implied these are the list of events. There was originally 2 towers in Equitique alongside the Bell Tower a long time ago. It was struck by lightning. A fire raged for multiple days and the tower was destroyed. 3 Pokemon lost their lives in the fire, and then Ho descended from the sky, resurrecting them. They emerged as completely different Pokemon, which you will now know as the legendary beasts Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. They scattered across the region, leaving one question behind. What were these Pokemon originally? This question, just like whatever was going on in the ruins of Alph, is never answered, but many people have speculated about it. Many think it was the Kanto evolutions, Jolteon, Flareon, and Vaporeon, but something we'll probably never get confirmed for sure. One of my personal favorite sections of this game is Goldenrod City. Up until this point in the game, everything is pretty small in scale. Most towns or cities have less than like 15 houses. Goldenrod is this hustling, bustling place that you'd expect for a city to be. The color palette is this bright shades of yellow and pink, with the exception of this radio tower, which is a deep grey color, and who could have guessed that's where Team Rocket is hiding. Towards the bottom section of the city, there's a man who gives you a mystery egg, which can hatch into any of the new baby Pokemon, and actually has a greatly increased chance of giving you a shiny Pokemon compared to a regular egg. You can also get the bike here, which is perfect for hatching the eggs you just got. But what most people remember this place for is Whitney's Miltank, which swept countless teams with the rollout. But my favorite part of the city isn't the city. It's what's up north of the city. Pass through the trainers and the police officers and the fire breathers and whoever else is there, and you'll reach a park. But what could be so special about a place called National Park? There aren't even any good Pokemon to catch. This is my favorite theme in the whole franchise. I just want to pause the video here for a moment and just reflect, I guess. I meant for this video to be very analytical, but this one track pretty much just makes me want to tear up every time I hear it. At least in my mind, this song just perfectly encapsulates how growing up with Pokemon as a kid felt. I want to preface, these games are much older than I am, and yet this song somehow just fills me with nostalgia. I know it's just a bunch of beeps and boops at the end of the day, but as corny as it sounds, this shit just makes me feel alive and full of wonder. Exactly like being a kid. It's like that scene in Ratatouille where the food inspector tries the food. That's probably the best way I could describe it. If you like this song as much as me, there's also a piano version, a Heart Gold Soul Silver remix, which is equally as good, but the original version just hits me for some reason. I play this game through multiple times, and I always just find myself heading straight here just to chill and listen to this song for a while, reflecting on not only the game, but like life in general. I really hope this emotional outburst doesn't drag as long as I think it did, but I really felt I needed to include that. Let's just get back to the video. Those are a few examples of how music changes the mood of a game, but let's focus more on the visual aspect of it now. One thing the Gen 2 games did was add a day and night cycle. This is just something we take for granted now, but back then it was revolutionary. Barely any game had really played around with the concept, let alone on a handheld console. But this feature was honestly a little too ahead of its time, because now, years later, Gen 2 games are notorious for having dead batteries, even more so than Gen 1 games, which nowadays makes it incredibly rare to find a working save file on one of these things. Technology aside though, this greatly changed how you could interact with the world, and changed the vibe of areas in the game entirely. This was also the generation that introduced Espeon and Umbreon, which rely on these cycles to even exist. In Johto, even with simple 8-bit graphics, the world itself tells a story. Just like in later games, the encounter pool of Pokemon you encounter changes depending on the time of day. There's morning, day, and night. Morning and day are very similar. Many Pokemon trainers are still asleep, and there are more bug-type Pokemon to catch in the wild. There's also a visual difference with subtle yellow hue in the morning, which goes away once day breaks. And at nighttime, the game switches to a bluish purple tone. The windows of buildings will light up. Even the Pokemon Center lady will note the player is still active, despite the time, before healing your Pokemon. The main difference is the encounter tables. Pokemon like Hoot-Hoot, Murkrow, or Poundor only appear at night, similar to nocturnal animals in real life. The nighttime in these games always felt really atmospheric to me, especially with the mysterious vibe that Johto emanates throughout the whole region. However, there is one exception which remains outside of this cycle. Once you reach Azalea Town, you can head to an area called Ilex Forest. In the original games, this entire place always appears to be in a perpetual state of night, due to how close the positioning of the forest trees are. Now this is a use of environmental storytelling and really sets the tone for the area. All you really do here is chase around a Farfetch to try and help it back to its trainer, but if you use cut on one of these trees and head north, there's a shrine. Now, this is actually how you get Celebi in these games, but the event is pretty much inaccessible unless you had a weird contraption hooked up to your Game Boy and went back in time. But in the 3DS Virtual Console releases, you can just talk to this NPC at the end of the game, and it looks like this. Also, if you were wondering, yes, you can shiny hunt this. One of the cool things about the older games is, even if the games can't give you an exact version of what a place might look like, the anime or TCG artwork often could give you a visual glimpse into the world. Even outside the games, this sense of mystery carries over. Like these illustrations done by the one and only Ken Sugimori. Or even if you look at some of these TCG artworks from this era, you can see a lot of these artworks are caught during the night or sunset. And that's not a coincidence. I think the best example of this design choice is the shiny cards from Neo Destiny. In each one of these artworks, each shiny Pokemon is covered in holofoil, instead of background like usual. This makes them seem more like silhouettes until you put a light on them, and you can see the shine of the actual Pokemon. And a lot of them are positions which make them harder to make out. Like the Shining Charizard is being shown from behind, or the menacing pose of the Shining Tyranitar, where his face is obscured. One card that's always stuck out to me in this bunch is the Noctowl. While not a particularly memorable Pokemon, the way this artwork is drawn just gives it this really strong mystique, in my opinion. The background is blurry, as if the person capturing it who saw it was jumped and jerked the camera, while the Pokemon itself stays still, staring us down. At least that's my headcanon. You can also see a similar idea in the Steelix. The background has a shaky look as if the Steelix is rushing out of the borders. That's at least my perspective on these cards, and why some of them are my favorites, although I'm no art connoisseur. What I think really hammers home the mystique of Johto is the connection between reality and fiction. Just like every other Pokemon region, Johto is based on a real-life location on Earth. Johto specifically is based on the Kansai region of Japan. But unlike other regions where it's a loose reference to a real place, everything in Johto can be traced back to somewhere in real life. The Bellsprout Tower, based on the Hiroji Temple in Nara. Bell's Tower is based on the Toji and Kinekaku-chi Towers. The Ruins of Alph is based on the Akasa Village Tomb. Olivine's Lighthouse is based on the Kopor Tower. Mount Silver is based on Mount Fuji, and the list goes on. If you're interested, there's a fantastic video by the Rabbit House World, which goes really in depth on this topic, which was a huge inspiration for this video, so I'll leave a link in the description. This link between realism and fiction in this region is a big part of what I think makes Johto so magical. Another aspect of this is the real life history between Kanto and Kansai. Kanto is known for its innovation, and was the engine of modernization. Tokyo brought industrialization, standardized language, and became a hub for technology. Kansai, in contrast, values tradition above all. Historical monuments like the 17 UNESCO World Heritage Sites are preserved, and traditional arts such as the Chenyo tea ceremonies remain alive today. In Kyoto, strict historical building rules meant most houses used muted browns and greys, a subtle way to express taste within limits. Even a detail like that can still be seen within the remakes. Ectric City, which is the in-game equivalent to Kyoto, has a Pokemon Center which has a muted brown color for the roof instead of the regular bright grey, acknowledging this cultural aspect in the game. Despite the two regions bordering each other, they have completely different cultural values, and yet Gold and Silver are meant to one-up Gen 1 in every way. Pretty much everything in Gen 1 has been improved or at least stayed the same. And even so, with such a limited amount of memory on the Game Boy cartridge, they managed to fit the entirety of Kanto into the post-game. Now, this video is about Johto, not Kanto, so I don't want to spend too much time on this, but as everyone knows, the true finale of Gold and Silver has been waiting for you at the top of Mount Silver. The final battle of this game is the interpretation of none other than your past self. Red sits alone, at the top, with no one left to challenge him. Defeating him not only means completing the game, but surpassing your own abilities. Once you beat him, he leaves without saying a word, and you're left there, also, alone at the top. But does any of it really matter? Throughout the game, there's always this sense of greater history, and a land filled with plenty of mysteries. What actually are the legendary dogs? What the hell is unknown? Why is my mom still taking half my money? The game never explains any of it. And that's okay. Some mysteries are best unsolved. And where would the magic go if there was nothing left to wonder about? If I can leave you with one final message, it would be this. As we get older, we lose our sense of wonder. We take on responsibility and life becomes systemized. And we often lose what made our children playing Pokemon outside feel so special. If you rush to the top like Red, you're left empty. Goals are important, but sometimes you need to stop and smell the roses. Pokemon is all about exploring. Maybe tomorrow, on your way to school or work, walk down a road you've never been down before. Just visit somewhere new. You never know what you might discover. And never stop asking questions.